You know, the other day, I walked into work and said, "Ohio," to my coworkers. By instinct. They don't talk to me anymore. Anyway, Ohio gozaimasu, pussies. It's summer roundup time. I'm speedrunning this because my last recording fucking died. I don't know what happened to it, but fuck it. We're going right in. I'm not covering Eden Zero or Bleach or whatever. None of that is on here because I like them a lot. And they're major, long-running shonen. Well, not Eden Zero, really, but fuck it. It doesn't matter. Eden Zero's fucking good, so watch it. Anyway, moving on. Number one, shit. Fuck. Contestant number one, Zom 100. I gotta tell you, I love Zom 100. I really like what they did with the anime. Visuals here are fucking awesome. It's very cool to look at. The way the characters move is smooth and nice, and the way the camera works and it works around that is nice. Very cool visuals throughout. I love the use of color splashing as well. The manga volumes, the covers are very interestingly colored. They don't really scream zombie apocalypse. I've been reading the manga for about a year. It's very cool. I really like what they did with this. They really gave it time. The pacing of the scenes is nice. It's just very cool. Visuals are very nice, and I like the way that they push, live every day to its fullest. Like, Zom 100 is almost as if... Imagine you join... you put a challenge to yourself to join a different subreddit every week. Like, 1 week you join, the Toyota subreddit, and you learn the very intricate differences between the 2022 and 2023 Toyota Camry. And then next week, you join, the Squirrel Hunters subreddit, and you really get into it with, 50-year-old men who just learned to connect with the internet. The point is, right, you do whatever you happen to be doing at any given time, you do with all your heart, right? You really get into it and to give it your all. That's what Zom 100 is trying to do. Live every day to the fullest because you never know when it could be your last. Blah, blah, blah. Very cool. It's nice. The characters are great. They're so fun. Good shit. It's just fun. Delays aside, unfortunate delays aside, it's very, very good. Very fun. I think just about anyone could like Zom 100. It's very, very good. So, watch Zom 100 if you haven't. You are doing yourself a disservice. It's very good. And Shizuka and Beatrix are very pretty. You're welcome. Moving on. Let's talk about the Atelier Ryza. Ever Darkness in the Secret Hideout, the animation. In contrast to Zom 100, I'm noticing how not very much movement there is in most anime. This one, in a lot of others this season, this one feels very stiff. And it's kind of a shame because I think the visuals could do a much better job of conveying what Ryza is all about. Especially this first game, it's so much about coming of age, adventure, finding yourself as a person, finding what you love to do and discovering yourself, and it's about freedom. And it doesn't really convey that in the visuals, which is a shame because I think it could. But it also doesn't really do a fantastic job with the story. I feel like the story beats they do include are fine. I understand some of them. Ampel and Leela don't feel nearly as important as they do in the game. I played the first Atelier Ryza in preparation for this. I was going to play it anyway, but I wanted to do that before this came out because I wanted to compare it as a mistake I made with Nier Automata. And Ryza's good. It's a great game. But I feel like the primary purpose of this animation was just to market the games. Because I feel like Ryza is kind of in an interesting position where a lot of people, especially if you're in the anime community, you probably have seen her or you know about her, and you've never played her games. I was that way for a long time. I feel like this was primarily to market her games, which is fine. They got a lot of close-up on her thighs. It's probably what a lot of people watched it for. But that's cool because fan service sells. Who cares? Point is, I don't think this is that bad, and I enjoyed it because I like the characters and watching them interact. But it also didn't really do a great job of conveying what Ryza is really about. It definitely could have been better, but they couldn't have covered the whole story in 12 episodes. That would have just been impossible. And another thing worth mentioning is that I think Ryza's alchemy achievements in the context of the anime don't really feel warranted. I feel like about half the game is about gathering materials. Like, you're just constantly exploring, finding where things are that you need to make new recipes, to make new things that you need to progress in the game. You hardly ever see Ryza, or anyone for that matter, gathering materials. Like, they're constant in the game, we're constantly exploring and finding new things. That's not really the case in this. They don't ever do that, and you barely even ever see Ryza do alchemy, and when she does, it's that same reused animation a bunch, which doesn't really show anything. And I get alchemy is kind of an abstract process, but I mean, I feel like they could have done a little better with it. The story beats like Claudia's dad challenging Leela and like showing how they're Ryza, Claudia, and Lent are like trying to distance themselves from their parents a little bit and become their own people. That was portrayed well and conveyed well, but I just feel like overall it could have been better. Like, a lot of the stuff could have been just done better. It's not bad. Like, if you don't want to commit to the games, this is a fairly decent way to experience Ryza and understand what the characters are like. So, and like what's going on. But if you played the game, you probably feel a little disappointed. Reborn. As a vending machine, I now wander the dungeon. I gotta tell you, I thought this was gonna be trash. And it really wasn't. It wasn't, like, amazing, but it was enjoyable. And I actually think they did a fairly good job with it. As far as ridiculous isekai goes, I'm actually not offended by this one even a little bit. It's just, like, obviously the main issue I think I would have had is, I think, obviously, since he's a fucking Boxo has a hard time communicating with the other characters, right? And I think they maneuver that in a pretty, like, clever way, in a way that makes sense, so I think it's fine, and they do make it work. The other characters, they make it work. Even, I feel like Boxo's inner monologues are never too tedious or anything, so I enjoyed it. Like, Hulumi and Lamis both carry, I think. They're both the most interesting and fun characters to watch for me. But I don't think there's any bad characters either. Like, the random princess is a weird example, but, like, there's the socially awkward guy, there's the hunter group, none of which I minded that much. They didn't really contribute too much, but, the director guy is cool. There's some interesting stuff at play here, and it's, obviously it never was going to reach a real conclusion because there's just a little too much at play. Like most isekai, you're gonna have to read the fucking light novels for that, idiot. But at the same time, I found this very enjoyable. Like, it's just fun to watch because the characters are fun. And even though it's, there's a certain degree of ridiculous to most anime, this one's just, a considerable amount more ridiculous than most anime, and kind of comes off as almost ridiculous, almost to a point that it's just not funny anymore. But it is funny. Like, it is actually funny, and I enjoy it. And there's actually, like, some growth here. Like, Lamis and Hulumi, like, their backstories are explored a little bit. Like, when they take on the Stratum Lord, and Boxo is trying to maneuver, like, navigate how to use his abilities. And, the abilities don't really make sense, but it's an isekai, so whatever. And just, Boxo doing his best to, like, trying to protect the people he cares about, even though he can't really communicate with him very much at all. It's just cool, and somehow they managed to get their feelings across. He managed to get, like, his feelings across to them sometimes. It's just kind of fun. Like, not even kind of fun, it is fun. I enjoy it. So, it's just good. Man, I thought it was gonna suck. But it really wasn't that bad. The girl I like forgot her glasses. So, let's disregard whatever that sequence from episode 1 was. We're not going to talk about it. I wanted to like this one more. I really did. I felt like it could have been cuter than it was. I do think it wasn't bad. I think the main problem I have with it lies in the fact, like, I read a little bit of the manga, like, while I was in Barnes & Noble or whatever, just because I was curious. Each chapter is, like, 4 fucking pages. It never commits to too much at once, and I think it kind of suffers for that. Because I really thought we were going to end off on, like, a more conclusive note, and we just didn't. But I do think it's, like, fairly cute, and there are some cute moments here. And these kids are in middle school, so it's obviously they're going to be awkward. I think Komuna is more awkward than he should be, and his inner monologues are very weird sometimes. But overall, like, I didn't hate it. It was okay. Like, again, I mentioned this a bunch in the last roundup. I'm not the target audience for that fucking show. So, if you're considerable amount of years younger than me, then you probably will have enjoyed this much more than I did. Also, and coming with the territory, having seen less rom-coms than me. There's, like, it could have been better, but it also could have been worse, and I do think it's fairly cute here and there. These kids, they're just trying their best, to be honest, and not to be disliked, because they don't know, like, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable in social situations just yet. And they're still trying to figure everything out. So I get it. The problem I have with this is it doesn't really commit to anything. But, I mean, it was fine. There was some weird backstory revealed at the end that the two main characters might have known each other, like, as kids, which is fucking, I don't know why they brought that up in, like, episode 13. It's stupid, but it was a thing. Like, if you're into, like, this kind of, like, slow, sort of down-to-earth rom-com, and maybe you're a bit younger, on the younger side, you'll probably like this. Okay, My Happy Marriage. Again, another shoujo. I sort of feel like I'm out of my element here, but this looked very nice. Let's get that out of the way, right? This looked very nice. There was a surprising amount of fighting in this somehow. And the fight scenes all looked pretty cool, and the way they worked with the supernatural abilities throughout visually was interesting and unique. I like it. And I like the message, like the theme of Mio gaining some amount of self-confidence, because she was raised in that family where everyone fucking hated her and put her down constantly. Like, it's good stuff. Like, her connecting with a guy who just comes off course and has trouble, keeping a woman around, because he is nicer than he seems. So it's an interesting pairing right off the bat. I appreciate that about it. It is cute. I do think it's very nice and sweet throughout. And there is, like, that underlying... It's not really underlying, but, like, that season-long story they tell about Mio supposed to have had supernatural abilities, but doesn't, and then eventually discovering them is nice. And the way she uses them at the end is very cool just to see, and very satisfying. So it's good stuff. I enjoyed it. It's definitely more on, like, the shoujo side, so I'm a little out of my element. But especially if you're more into, like, the romance type of stuff, you're gonna like this one. It's just very nice. I don't really think much will ever come of the whole, Mio's husband, I forget his name, being, like, in charge of the army or whatever it is he does. It never seems like anything much comes of that, other than just to distract him or, like, make an excuse, like, oh, he's at work, so he can't come see you right now, or whatever. So nothing really ever comes of that. So it feels like it doesn't mean anything. And for some reason, a ton of people are always trying to sabotage Mio for whatever reason. Like, her family has some sort of... Like, the ability that runs in her family is fucking crazy or whatever. So people are trying to force her into their family or whatever. But she's like, I want to live happily with the guy I love and whatever. So it's cool, very shoujo, good stuff. I enjoyed it. Am I actually the strongest? Yeah, sure, you are. This one I would just watch episodes and be like, why did I do that? Why did I watch that? Because, again, this one is actually much, much worse at not committing to anything. than the glasses one that I mentioned a couple entries ago. The characters don't do anything. Like, the most notable thing that happens in the whole season is, like, the main character who makes friends with his little sister and gets her to be a fucking weeaboo. Like, she starts watching anime. But before that happened, she was super cold to him, or, like, you know, was running away, afraid of him. Whatever. And also the main character becomes, like, a hero in black who, like, deals out justice sometimes, and he's not Batman. It's just nothing. It's actually more nothing than most getting reincarnated as a baby isekais, which is impressive, actually, because even like the characters that are supposed to be like major players, like the maid dragon girl, and like the other maid dragon girl, the red one and then the blue one. And then also his cousins who don't fucking do anything except argue about nothing. And then the fucking principal. All of those characters are fucking meaningless. Like, they don't do anything. They don't contribute anything except wacky dialogue. So I don't know what they were going for here. I don't even know if there's a light novel to this, but either if there is, it probably sucks. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know what they were trying to do here, because even when there is plot, it's just rendered null and void, because either it's just taken care of by the main character disguised himself, or he's just like, man, I want to go home and play video games, and so he just does. He's like, oh, you know what, fuck this, I'm not going to explore this plot point, I'm going to go home and play video games. Like, that's a respectable attitude, right? But if you're going to try to introduce plot, don't quit halfway through because the character wants to go home and play video games. If I wanted to quit halfway through and go home and play video games, I would just do that in real life. Yeah, it feels like none of the characters contribute anything. Feels like the story goes fucking nowhere. I gotta tell you, I just don't see the point of this show. But I also didn't really find it funny, and I feel like there are moments where I was supposed to find it funny. So, you probably need to be 10 years younger to be interested in this one. Okay, Liar Liar. I like this one, you know. I've gotten to a point where I feel like I can see an anime based on a light novel and know if the light novel is good. This is one of those where you watch it and be like, oh man, the light novel of this must be fucking awesome. And I feel like this is totally that. Because I don't feel like the anime does the best job of going over all the fucking rules, because there's so many different games and there's constantly so many rules and caveats to everything. I just feel like that'd be better digested in a form of a light novel. There's just a little too much for me to keep track of, because I feel like I never truly understand what's going on in the actual games. The overarching plot is a little easier to understand, but I do like the characters, right? But it's just a little hard to digest in the form of an anime, as far as, like, the game itself goes. And that's, like, the main point. Like, they're always playing those different games and challenging each other. So, there's just a little too much explaining. But it is fun, to a certain extent. Like, I did enjoy watching it. So, it's probably, it's not really... It's definitely not special. As far as, like, a light novel adaptations go, definitely not special. You could find plenty of anime based on light novels that are as good as this or better. But I do think it's interesting. Like, there's the way the story and world that is set up is fairly interesting, and I don't think the characters are bad either. I just had a hard time digesting everything in this context, in, like, the anime. And it is, like, goofy. Like, it has a lot of those light novel tropes you'll see, where, like, every one of the girls is starting to crush on the main character, and they, like, show it in different ways. Like, and that's kind of, like, the moments that stick out, almost. And then there's a ton of characters, namely female characters, who are, like, enemies and eventually become friends, who crush on the main character, which is fine. That's cool. Like, I've read light novels before. Yeah, it doesn't really stand out in any way, but, like, it's one of those where it's like, oh man, if you read the light novel, you would probably be having a good time. So, yeah, I do think it's enjoyable, and there are some fun characters here. And I do like the games. Like, they're interesting and well thought out. It's just that I didn't think them out very well, and so I didn't understand most of them. But it was enjoyable. Yeah, I don't even know what else to say. Like, the whole plot with, like, Miss Three Faces or whatever. 3 Faces, 100 Faces. Yeah, the plot with that was alright. Kind of threw you for a couple loops here and there, and like the guy behind that whole scheme, I don't really know who he was, but he was there, and there was this cool moment where he was like, Hiroto was like, hey man, fuck you, I know where you live, and my guys are gonna show up at your front door, knock knock, bitch. Yeah, it's okay. My Tiny Senpai, this one's not bad. It was cute. One of the cuter rom-coms this season, I think. But again, not a lot of substance here. This one, another workplace rom-com. I think it was cute, but there's really not a lot of substance here. It's just kind of like a cute thing here, and then an unrelated cute thing there. The characters are not bad. They're definitely fun to watch. And the manager is hilarious. Love that guy. Like, even the way the main two interact, it's fun. It's just a very cute, innocent, well, not really innocent, but it is sweet rom-com. Office school, not fucking school. A little office, a workplace rom-com. It's nice. It's something you can just get into, like, casually, I think, if you're into rom-coms. But you're not going to be blown away or anything. You know, they'll just touch on all your favorite little rom-com beats. You know, they'll get in their swimsuits. They'll go to the shrine or whatever in the festival or whatever the fuck. They'll, like, go see some kids, and the characters will be like, oh man, he or she is so good with kids, they'd make a great mom or dad. Ooh! And there are some, like, interesting character interactions here and there, like the girl who draws BL manga, the not Wodakoi girl, definitely not the girl from Wodakoi, a different one, the blonde one in this one. And then there's, like, that one girl who was, like, you know, they're trying to, like, she was really stuck up about her work and whatever. There's something to it here and there, but it usually gets resolved within an episode or two. It's alright. And it never really, like, annoyed me at any point. And I feel like that's an achievement for a rom-com, because I'm about to talk about one that got on my nerves. Let's talk about Saint Cecelia and Pastor Lawrence. This one, I feel like, had something to it, right? Because I like the whole idea of lady saints being, like, this special breed, and, like, they're so constantly treated like they're above people, and, like, there's that backstory with Hazelita's brother or whatever, and there was another lady saint who got treated like some sort of god and eventually died of sickness. And, you know, how Lauren and Cecelia are, like, trying to, you know, live together and figure shit out, but it progressed too slowly. Like, Lauren, I think, is one of the most infuriating rom-com protagonists I've seen in a while. Man just doesn't understand anything. How old is this dude? And he won't call a woman by her name. Progression is slow. I don't really know what they're trying to do here. Like, I know it's a manga, so, like, geez, I don't know how fucking long this manga is. It was very hard to watch sometimes, because it was just like, oh my god, kiss already. Like, I'm tired of this. And it wasn't, like, in the sort of cute way that Angel Next Door pulled that off. This one was more just, like, recycling the same little blushing moments over and over again. Or at least the same, like, sort of style. And I do think the characters outside the main two were fun. I don't dislike the main two characters. It's just, like, the actual progression of the story itself and the development of the romance was too slow for my liking. But the two main characters are fine. Like, Lauren's backstory and Cecilia's backstory are not bad. The blonde guy and Hazelita are fun. The brother's, like, an interesting addition. The fortune teller girl's cute and funny. The shopkeeper and her son. Like, it's not a bad world that they've set up here. It's just too slow with the romance, and it feels like nothing really ever happens. Which is, like, I guess sort of the point. Like, they kind of want to maintain a status quo a lot of the time. But, I don't know. It makes me mad. So, but this wasn't a bad show. I didn't hate it. It was just sort of slow and annoying. I already disconnected my lighting. I forgot a couple. Let's talk about the Great Cleric quickly. This is another kind of nothing. It is fairly consistent, I'll give it that. Like, it does whatever it wants, and I think the internal monologues of the main character, Luciel or whatever, they can be funny sometimes. He's a goofball, and it's endearing to a certain extent. There's a few running gags that are kind of funny. Again, I think you need to just be younger and less jaded than me for this comedy to really work. But I feel like it would work on the right audience. So, but everything else about it is sort of half-assed, especially like when it comes to the like things surrounding like the main point. Like the main point is like, you know, healers extort people because they're the only people who can heal wounds that people suffer in battle, and so they extort them for a bunch of money. And Luciel is going to be like, no, I don't need your money. I can heal you out of the goodness of my heart, and, you know, for a little cash, because I can't fucking bankrupt the economy. So that's a fine message to push, and I appreciate that, but it also just doesn't really do anything else worthwhile. Like, even the love interests are half-assed. Like, not in the sense of their characters, but the sense of the actual romance development. It's just nothing. So, there's some cool moments and some acceptable characters. Like, forgettable characters, but acceptable. And the interactions are usually pretty fun, but other than that, it's like a pretty standard. A lot of the interactions are also very standard anime BS. So, it's alright though. It's not bad. I didn't hate it. Next, I want to talk about Level 1 Demon Lord and the One Room Hero, or whatever it is. That one. Again, I feel like I'm a little too jaded for this comedy. It is ridiculous. It's very ridiculous at points. But again, I feel like it works. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to pretend I'm above that kind of comedy. But it just didn't make me laugh. So, like, I don't know. It did make me laugh sometimes. But for the most part, it was just kind of nonsense. Felt like nonsense. I appreciate, like, the building of the relationship between the former Demon Lord and Max. And I like the interwoven, or at least I can appreciate, the interwoven sort of storytelling between the former hero bros, or whatever the fuck they were, the traveling companions, and like how they were in charge of their own kingdoms and ended up fighting it out in the end, and Max humiliated himself. That's good storytelling. I like that at the end to solve everything. I just completed a thought. I just interjected a sentence before finishing whatever. The point is, this one's alright. I didn't really hate it. It was definitely slow around the middle. I mean, it was alright, you know. It could have been worse. You know, I do think it was funny, like Max, so sometimes. Max being ridiculous, the crazy secretary girl being crazy. Why was there a ghost person in the closet? That sort of thing. I forgot to wear my sunglasses. Anyway, moving on. My unique skill makes me OP even at level 1. This was another nothing burger for me. I didn't hate it, but I wish it would commit to something. I wish anime would commit to something and not just do whatever it wants for no reason, and that's not related to anything else. This one's sort of like a dungeon crawler where they go into a dungeon and make more progress, whatever. It is cute. Right? So, if this is your first one of these you've ever seen, you'd probably be like, oh, this is alright, I enjoy this. But if you've seen a bunch of them, then you're probably like, alright, I've seen this a million times. Because I have. And I feel like, I don't know, a lot of it is just, working out, a lot of, what happens in the plot is, working out economic deals, and, the main character, Ryota, is just helping out the village he stays in for no reason other than he can. So, it feels like I don't really understand the guy. He's just too good-hearted. I feel like there should be a limit to how nice you can be. Because when you become too nice, I'm like, I don't care anymore. You're just doing shit because, you have the epic drop ability, and no one else can do what you can do. And he starts, shooting people with healing bullets and fire bullets and whatever, and starts fucking fusing shit. I don't know. It just felt like nothing. I didn't feel like anything happened. Even with the addition of new characters over time, Man, there was the one chick, the small girl who like got added like episode 10 or like 9 or whatever. Man, I don't even remember her name. I don't remember any of their names actually, but I forgot she was even there the next time she showed up. Like, these characters are just nothing. They're very like one-dimensional for the most part. Even the main character feels one-dimensional. It's definitely a letdown. Like, there are better shows of this style out there, for sure. This is definitely on the lower end of that scale, which is a shame because I think the characters they seem okay, and like the way the clash of like the different types of personalities that are present are interesting. But yeah, definitely feels like a bit of a letdown overall. Okay, so the Dreaming Boy is a realist. This just feels like a guy and a girl handling literally everything in regard to their relationship in the worst possible way. Like, they couldn't have done it worse if they tried. Like, it feels like the guy misunderstanding everything, the girl misunderstanding everything, and then they fumble through everything. And it feels like nothing ever gets accomplished until, like, the very end, which is basically just the fucking babiest of baby steps. So, whatever. Like, yes, it could have been better. I do like the characters to a certain degree. It's fine, right? Like, the main character interacting with, you know, a bunch of different other characters in these, like, sort of funny ways, I see how it could be enjoyable. And the main character, he's constantly, like, helping people, you know, in whatever ways he can, while ignoring the love interest. And then, like, the love interest, she's weird, too. Like, she was, like, Aika. Aika is her name? Yes. Sajo and Aika. Fuck. Sajo, he was hitting on this girl, Aika, for goddamn years at a time, and then he just suddenly gives up one day, and Aika's like, wait, I want him to hit on me, even though I always said it was a bother, and she's, like, the most typical tsundere you've ever seen in your life. So, they both are weird, and they handle their relationship wrong. But, you know, when they make up in the end, eventually, even that, when they like, kind of talk things out, it still just feels forced and weird. And like, neither character is, like, really willing to pour it all out and, like, you know, actually say what they're thinking. So it's just, I don't know. Again, you know, I'll say it a million times. So many rom-coms could be solved immediately if people would just say what they actually think instead of going in a roundabout way. This is one of those. Like, this could have ended in, like, 2 episodes. It just revolves around so many weird misunderstandings and, like, characters reacting to those misunderstandings in weird ways. But, I don't know. I guess if you enjoy it, then you enjoy it. It's just not really that good, in my opinion. But there are some decent characters. Like, I don't know. I feel like it could have been better, but it wasn't. Reign of the Seven Spellblades. This is a light novel that I've seen lurking in the Barnes & Nobles I've been in, and always I'm like, what the fuck is this? So I was nervous going into this, and I think rightfully so, because, fuck. This was a mess. I wanted to like it more, I gotta tell you. Because I like the way it sets up the main group of 6 characters, but again, it sort of feels like not much is accomplished. I'd say the most notable thing is the whole, like, defeating Katie's little senpai and taking ownership of the ogre who speaks human language. Like, that's a cute little plot point, but again, it feels like it never commits to anything. It very, very rarely feels like it commits to anything plot-wise. It does set up some sort of interesting thing. Like, Oliver is, like, leading some sort of cult to get revenge on these, like, 7 people or whatever who, like, killed his mom. And then that's never followed up on, by the way. It just happened in, like, episode 6, and then it just never comes back up. There's the little disagreements between Cecelia and her cousin. Is her name Cecelia? I forget. The blonde one. That sort of was, like, interesting. A sort of Pete being a goddamn switcheroony. It's like, it's some interesting stuff here. Guy is fucking useless, by the way. That man does absolutely nothing. I don't know. And Nanao's presence is always just weird. Like, you know, they just try to do too many things. And it feels like none of it is ever related to other things. Like, you do see some, like, returning characters sometimes, but it's just... I wanted to be more invested, but I find it hard to get invested when, like, there's just nothing really consistent about it. There's not really a consistent story being told. It was not as good as it could have been. Like, if it had actually followed up on the whole Oliver thing after episode 6, like, leading up to episode 6, it was fine. And if it just followed up with that, that would have been totally cool. I would have been like, fuck yes. But it was just too many things. Tried to do too many things. Like, what the fuck was about that game where they, like, tried to fight each other? They, like, challenged each other randomly across the school, and Oliver just, like, won or whatever, and, like, Nanao beat someone, and then whatever. Like, and, like, Nanao tamed this, like, rogue broomstick who couldn't do anything, and, like, it was weird. Nothing came of that, by the way. They made, like, a hideout in the dungeon. Nothing came of that. Man, I really wanted to enjoy this one more. I really wanted to like it. I did, I swear. Like, I like the main 6 characters. They're fine and everything. But, like, anyway, moving on. The most heretical last boss queen. This is just discount my next life as a villainess. Sort of. I do like... Pride, I think, is an interesting character. I do think she harps a little too heavily on the whole, well, if I become evil someday, as if she doesn't have full control over her mind and body. She thinks she's just gonna end up winding up being evil for some reason, because like she can't help it as the evil princess. Feels kind of stupid. Guess she doesn't ever seen an isekai before. She's constantly winning over these men who dedicate themselves to her. There's some interesting plot points here and there. Again, it doesn't really commit to anything, but this show I think it works a little better. Because it never tries to delve too deep into anything. It never leaves me, like, grasping for fucking straws. You know, like, it doesn't, like, drop hints randomly and then not follow up. So there's not really a lot of plot to begin with. The whole there's, like, an interesting kind of follow-through thread with, like, that guy who was, like, a criminal and who Pride defeated at the scene of that one battle. And he eventually became her consort, whatever the fuck it's called. I don't know that terminology. And then, like, his little adopted siblings, not siblings, you know, they got kidnapped and they go in to save them. There's all that, and, like, Arthur and Stale being converted and, you know, seeing how awesome she is and all that nonsense. It's fine. Like, if this is your thing, then you'll probably like it, because it is, I do think it's enjoyable. My next life as a villainess, it's the same kind of thing, right? I didn't really care too much about that. The same kind of thing with this. If you like it, then you like it, right? But yeah, I think Pride is by far the most interesting part of this. Like, she's just very understandable as a character. I think, she's easy to root for. So, I appreciate that about it, but... yeah, there's not really much to say other than that. Just very standard sort of stuff. But I do appreciate what it tried to do and what it accomplished. Okay, Classroom for Heroes. This is so fucking nothing. I do think it was funny here and there, but Blade is kind of an infuriating main character. I think he's fun here and there, and I think he was kind of supposed to be infuriating to a certain extent. But yeah, it's just, again, another case of not committing to anything. I do think the show is sort of enjoyable, and the characters are fun, for sure. I feel more confident saying that about most of the Nothing shows this season, that the characters in this show are fun. And the comedy does and can and does land in many episodes. But it's just very standard stuff. Like, you know, you've got a super strong guy who used to be a hero trying to mingle with the rest of the people his age. And it's not really clear if he's like a fusion between the hero. I think he's meant to be a fusion between the hero and the demon lord or whatever. But, you know, the stuff, there's some interesting stuff, like the stuff with Sophie and like why she was created, and like then her little 5 quintuplets or whatever, and then they all like fuse into one or whatever. And like what's her face, the other one who's not Sophie but like acts sort of the same way, and like Ernest always being sort of wacky. Yeah, there's just nothing really here, but I do think this one's a little more enjoyable because it's definitely more comedic focused from the start, and it makes that very clear. So I find this one more acceptable because it didn't seem like it was trying to introduce plot. It just was kind of funny here and there. So I find this one more acceptable than most of the others that have been nothing in this season. So yeah, if this is the sort of like wacky sort of fantasy is your thing, you'll probably like this one. I do think Blade and Ernest are fun, and like the way the rest of the characters interact with him, and they're like they kind of gang up on Blade for fun, and it's goofy. It's fun. It's all right. Let's talk about Temple. This one's all right. I do appreciate like the approach it took. Again, I think this one's comedy lands fairly well, and the characters, like the way they're presented, it does sort of make sense given the way the show's introduced, and yeah, like it's not bad, and the way the characters, the dialogue between the characters is fun, most of the time, and even like Akagami mingling with all the ladies around him one by one is sort of interesting. It keeps you on your toes a little bit. You're seeing Yuzuki throughout trying to like learn to deal with everything that she's feeling and trying to keep up with helping the temple. It's endearing and goofy sometimes. Like the whole show's goofy a lot, and it just sort of works. It accomplishes, I think, what it sets out to do. That is, be a little goofy, fan servicey rom-com with like a little hint of seriousness behind it. Yeah, I mean this one's not bad. I definitely didn't hate it, and I do think the comedy lands here and there. But again, like this is another one of those where you probably want to be a little younger, and you'll get more enjoyment out of it. All right, Undead Girl Murder Farce. This one I actually thought was fairly interesting. Again, there's a lot of quick-witted dialogue here, which I think endears me to the characters. It's very cool. I think this one's one of the stronger ones of the season for sure, especially new stuff. Like it kind of moves between, like there's three. It's separated into three big mysteries, and the way it's solved, they don't really make sense. You know, I forget her name, but the master, the severed head immortal lady, makes all kinds of wacky connections that you probably wouldn't have made on your own. But between the detective side of it and the fighting side of it, which the main guy, whose name I forget, brings, it is cool to watch and fun and interesting in that way. And like a lot of times it kind of throws you for loops with like who's doing what and why. Again, it kind of delves into this, like especially like the second mystery. It kind of like introduces these characters who escape and may be back later, but they don't come back in this series, in this like season, which feels like a letdown because introducing characters. Yeah, this one's fun though. Like especially if you like detective shows and you like thinking about this stuff, you'll probably really enjoy this one. And even if you like fighting, like I think the action looks fairly good. Like I don't think there's a bad fight scene in this. So this one's solid for sure. This one's definitely one of the strongest of the whole season. So if you enjoy this kind of thing, like the whole, especially like supernatural mystery, detective sort of stuff, you'll definitely like this one. It definitely does a good job with the intrigue and introducing characters and that kind of thing. And the dialogue's great. Overall, like I think dialogue is one of the strongest parts of this show for sure. It's very fun throughout. So good stuff. Okay, Synduality Noir. Synduality Noir. This one's okay. This one's fine. I wanted to like it more than I did. Again, this is sort of another case of not committing to anything. The plot is very sparsely taken care of. A lot of it is sort of done randomly. Like there's a lot of weird shit that is done to like sort of introduce characters and establish relationships between them, which is like fine. And I like the whole CL being a spy. I just spoiled everything. CL being a spy and like how she's introduced and eventually getting attached to Kanata and all that. There's a weird twist at the end of this season. Thankfully we're getting another one of Noir fucking turning evil or whatever the fuck happened there. And she gets all sassy. There's another personality or whatever inside her. We still really don't know what her deal is. But Kanata, I don't hate him. Then there's some fun characters here. Tokyo's cool. Ellie's alright. Maria's hot. Claudia's there too. There's that one guy who's funny and has the sunglasses. Sorry, not me. Don't get it confused. This one's alright. I even the mechs, the fight scenes with the mechs, they look pretty solid. But yeah, it just plot wise, the pacing feels weird. is kind of all over the place. At the same time, I don't think I ever really disliked an episode. It just kind of felt a little disjointed. Because I do feel like, to a certain extent, each episode served a purpose to, like, help us get to know the characters a little bit better. But Kanata does feel a little one-dimensional. Hopefully, when they actually start going after Paradise in this next season, in the winter, hopefully they explore whatever that is, because there was some guy who showed up in the last episode who's like, we kill everyone who wants to go to Paradise. Hopefully when that Kanata becomes a little more of a relatable root, someone I want to root for as the protagonist. Also, I'm going to ignore the fact that the final boss of this season is called Silver Storm. It's not related to me, and I've decided to ignore it. Alright, let's talk about Blue Orchestra. I'm a former Orchestra kid, so maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I did enjoy this one. If you're a fan of, like, sound euphonium, Your Lie in April kind of thing, you'll probably like this one. It handles a lot of kind of complex feelings the characters deal with, and how they use music to express themselves and deal with their feelings. It's cool stuff, and like each character is in a little bit of a different situation. Aono's a cool lead. Overall, I thought it was pretty solid. I really liked the relationship between Aono and Saiki, and even like a lot of the random ass senpai in this are cool. Like, it's just I think fun. Like, it's definitely a little slow, but this one's definitely not bad, especially, like, I think if you're into, like, the whole sound euphonium kind of thing, you'll probably enjoy this one. But as a former orchestra kid, I used to play violin a bunch. So the orchestra stuff resonates with me a little bit more than, the band stuff. And it's like, there's always that interesting thread of, like, Aono's dad used to be a professional violinist, and Aono's living in his shadow all the time, and then eventually it's revealed Saiki's his half-brother, because his dad was a promiscuous slut. But it's fun. It's very cute and sweet. So yeah. It's just that music kind of thing, right? Slow, a little bit boring, but cute and sweet and has music in it. Okay, Mushoku Tensei Season 2, Part 1. It's been well established on this channel that I'm not a huge fan of Mushoku Tensei. I don't really care for it that much, but it does look damn good. Let's not ignore that. Again, I have a very hard time getting invested in shows where the main character spends 12 episodes trying to solve his erectile dysfunction. I feel like if you're going to establish a character in a fantasy world, there could be problems he could solve that are a little less mundane. I don't have a problem with erectile dysfunction, like trying to solve erectile dysfunction as a plot point in itself. That's a big fucking problem. Of course it is. Of course you want your dick to be hard. It's a fucking problem if it can't be hard. Like, I would want to solve that too. But Jesus Christ, why did he spend, like, the whole season on it? Like, I get it. And it was all to resolve at the point where Sylphie's revealed again. She reveals himself to Rudy again. I get it. I get why it was done. But also, it drags its feet so much. There's introduced that one chick who is also from Earth, for some reason, was brought here in a completely different way. And nothing comes of that. Like, I'm pretty sure Rudy and Sylphie are just going to leave her ass there to do whatever it is she's doing, so she's useless. A bunch of these other characters, like the two girls who are, like, furries or whatever, they're useless. Fucking the elf slut is still useless. She doesn't do anything. Like, it never does anything. Like, this season in particular felt very slow, because I felt like part 2 of last season, of season 1, was strong, because they were, like, moving around, doing things, and there were actually, like, fights that were cool and worthwhile. Not so much in this season. This was too slow, too boring, and characters were pointless. Maybe that's not the case if you really look hard at it, but I'm not going to look hard because I don't give a fuck. So, maybe that's my bias. Sure, I'm willing to accept that. So, if you like Mushoku Tensei, good for fucking you, dog. I support you. And I'm sure if you're into it, then it's very fun and enjoyable, but I just don't care. I really wish if you're as an author going to set up a fantasy world for your characters, make their problems less mundane. Period. Sorry, I don't make the rules. Like, if you really wanted to spend a whole season of some guy solving erectile dysfunction, make a show about my penis can't get hard anymore, so I became a chemist to solve erectile dysfunction for good, to make a fucking everlasting Viagra. That sounds way better than fucking Mushoku Tensei Season 2 Part 1. Oh, shit was ass. Anyway, next, Horimiya Peace. If you like Horimiya, you'll like this. Can I move on? I'm not a huge Horimiya fan. It didn't really resonate with me that much, but I do recognize how cute it is. And this is just more of that, like, it's the characters interacting, and if you like the characters of Horimiya, you're going to like this because it's all about them. I mean, again, there's nothing consistent here, it's just, they're pieces of Horimiya. And that's what it is. So, if you like that, then you're gonna like this. That's really all there is to it. Like, Miyamura and Hori are very cute, they're very sweet, and if you enjoy them and their interactions with the other side characters who are goofy and fun, you'll really like this, I'm sure. I can't even remember what happened in a single episode at this point in time. Just like, because there was no consistency to it. There was just them goofing off, doing sports day or whatever. Remember there was sports day, but it's just random shenanigans. So, I mean, not much to say here. That's really it. So if you like Horimiya, you'll like this. It's more Horimiya. Okay, Spy Classroom Season 2. I'm glad we got to pick up from where we left off pretty soon after Season 1. As well, again, it's established I really like Spy Classroom, but I don't think it's as digestible or as hard-hitting in the form of an anime. I think it works better in the form of a light novel. Again, this one's kind of stiff. Because one of the things I always found so fascinating about the Spy Classroom light novels is how Klaus is like invincible. That man, you never see him move. He is so stiff. Everyone's stiff in this, and it's hard to watch because I really wanted to see Klaus fucking actually kick ass, and he does sort of in the last few episodes, but I really wanted it to be more visually impressive and, you know, attention capturing and cool, but it was very nothing. So yeah, the anime is fine. Again, I think this one's, I feel like, again, sort of marketing as well, because Spy Classroom Volume 4, which was Mission Dream Speaker, which is what this season ended with. That's where I think that's the strongest volume by far, and that's where it ended. And I feel when I read Volume 4, I felt like I got hit so much harder than I did when I saw it in the anime, and I don't think that's necessarily the anime's fault. It's just better. It's a story that's better told in the form of a book. So, yeah. And again, I think this anime was mostly for marketing purposes, because the main 8 girls are just so cute and fun, right? They're very adorable and very fun to watch. They interact with each other, and it's goofy and it's fun and delightful. And that's sort of the main draw of the books as well. Like, just the main 8 girls, like, it's a bunch of, they're washouts, but they're all cute girls. So, it's, yeah. Again, Mission Dream Speaker, I think, is the strongest part of this. But there are things, like, if you haven't read the books, there are things that throw you for loops. Matilda's a good example. The show keeps you on your toes. And even when it does, like, the files, like the little backstory ones, I think they're enjoyable because they take a little time to explore the characters more than they did before, and more than they do in, like, you know, when plot's happening. And there also is, like, a good element of intrigue. Like, I think they do a very good job of, like, teasing Serpent and how they're the enemy and how we need to get rid of them. And, you know, dealing with Purple Ant was cool. Like, it's done in very well story-wise. I like, you know, Thea's development. It's done better in the books, again, in my opinion. But the overall, very strong. This one's stronger than Season 1 for sure. Just because it feels more unpredictable going this season. It just keeps you on your toes, and, you know, Thea actually has growth throughout. Like, you can see how each, like, the second impossible mission affected her. You know, when she dealt with Matilda, and how that carried over to Mission Dream Speaker, and then how she ended up resolving it, and how she dealt with her backstory with Hearth and all that. So it's good stuff. I really enjoy Spy Classroom. It's very cute. So yeah, it's consistent. It's good. I just wish it wasn't quite as stiff visually. So, oh well. But oh well. Next. Okay, Sugar Apple Fairy Tale Season 2. Part 2. Part 2. I want to say Part 2. I'm just kind of on the train for this one. Again, had trouble covering this a couple seasons ago, and I'm going to have trouble again. But I do like how Ann is always pushing the whole humans and fairies can coexist as friends narrative whenever she can. It's sweet and wholesome, and she's like using her art to constantly like earn the trust of people, like the head of the workshop she went to, and that there's a fairy in the mansion or whatever, and you know, some of the guys at the mansion didn't really like trust her to be the head artisan at first, and then she like proves herself. It's cool. And then the evil fairy shows up, and he's like, "Shall you and I are born of the same cloth," or whatever. And then they kick his ass, and it's cool. Not a huge fan of how it ended, sort of open-ended at the end there, but whatever. Not bad. I enjoyed this one. I do enjoy Sugar Apple Fairy Tale, but again, kind of out of my element. But yeah, overall, enjoyable. I like, you know, seeing how the sugar, like the sugar confections are used to like, I almost like communicate with other people throughout, like communicating through art. It's cool. Feels like a lot of the problems that arise in this show are because people steal sugar, which is a little stupid, but no, it's fine. It's enjoyable, and I like it. It's just not quite my thing, so I'm not sure how to approach it in a review. But no, it's fun. Like if this is your speed, like you're gonna enjoy it. And like, you know, some of the characters felt useless, but I mean, even Jonas got some level of redemption, and like Shao, he didn't really have that much growth. He just kind of was like super romantic towards Ann sometimes. But yeah, I mean, it's just more Sugar Apple Fairy Tale progressed in a logical way from last season, so yeah, good stuff. Okay, awakening from the spirit realm and showing itself in the world of the living again. Masamune's Revenge, Season 2. This followed up really nicely from Season 1, surprisingly, and the progression was nice. Each character seemed like they played a role, except for like the one not girl guy who sits next to Masamune, and Fujinomiya didn't really do anything. Everyone else, like, their roles made sense. The way that they felt sort of makes sense, except for Masamune's pox. Not really sure what that was a thing. It all made sense. The way they dealt with their feelings sort of made sense and was in character. I appreciate like the big reveal of Yoshino actually being the one to have called Masamune Pig's Foot when they were kids, and then eventually like Yoshino confesses to Masamune, and he's like, "But I actually love Aki," and Aki, like, even she has feelings for Masamune when she feels like she probably shouldn't, because she knows his feelings were supposedly fake, and then they're not fake, that kind of thing. It was solid, right? I actually enjoyed this one quite a bit, surprisingly. Not like, man, like more than I thought I would. It made sense. Pacing was nice, and it ended on a pretty satisfying note, so I won't complain. And I do like the character interactions for the most part. They're not amazing, but they're there, and they serve a purpose, and they're worthwhile. So fuck it. Yeah, good stuff. Okay, Rent-a-Girlfriend, Season 3. I would make an argument that this is the only worthwhile part of Rent-a-Girlfriend. Even after this. The making a movie part of Rent-a-Girlfriend, it actually feels like a worthwhile rom-com with purpose and things they're trying to accomplish. It's handled nicely, the pacing's not too bad, the way, like, Kazuya's motivation to help Chizuru makes sense given what's led up to this point. It like, you could argue he's being a simp, but I actually, like, it sort of makes sense, like, given his character. So, yeah, overall, this is actually a good part of, maybe not good, but a good part of Rent-a-Girlfriend. I do actually enjoy it, and the way it ends is very nice, because Chizuru getting that catharsis after her grandmother dies is very nice to see, and because she's been bottling up so much this whole time, and seeing her like be super honest and open is very, very cathartic. And even like Sumi's role in this, thank God Mommy's gone. Sumi's role in this is very sweet. Ruka's there, I guess, but Sumi's roles make sense. Like, the characters have purpose. Yai Mori's funny. She's the fucking best. This is okay. Like, it sucks that you have to watch 24 episodes to get to this point, but it is worthwhile. It feels like it is worth something, which is more than I can say about the last 2 seasons. So, good stuff. It should have ended after this. Hopefully they do no more anime, and the anime ends here, because the manga should have ended here. And it didn't. So, and everything after this fucking sucks ass. Yeah, if you're willing to put up with the pain and strife to get to this point, you maybe, potentially, maybe find it worthwhile. But it is good. It's alright. It's acceptable. It's Rent-A-Girlfriend, isn't it? Alright, Bungo Stray Dogs, Season 5. This is the best Bungo Stray Dogs has been ever, I think. The animation is strong, the storytelling is really nice, the plot progression keeps you on your toes, and keeps you guessing, and is always interesting. Because going off last season where I was kind of lost, this season really picked up in a nice spot, and all of the different plot points happening simultaneously made sense to me. You know, characters like the small girl, whose name I forget, play a bigger role than you might expect, and, you know, some of the plot points, like the whole vampire thing, kind of come out of nowhere, but a lot of it is really well done, and, like, it keeps you, like, anticipating, right? Like, you want to see more from Bungo Stray Dogs, and it's just good. And man, the way it ends with the boss guy and the other boss guy who had a past together, fucking, you know, him getting one of them, the enemy boss getting stabbed, you know, it's so good. This has got to be the best Bungo Stray Dogs has been ever. You know, like that, especially that scene on the boat where Atsushi and Akutagawa are fighting on the boat against the evil guy, Fukuchirorochi or whatever the fuck. That shit was cool. That was really nice. It looked really nice, and it was a cool fight. Well, it looked nice, interesting, and like the way the characters move about, the you know, if you look at it overall as a whole, and like the way characters move on the chessboard, interact with other people, it's cool. Like, this is a very strong season. Again, I think it's the best season of Bungo Stray Dogs thus far. It just overall felt very strong. And I do think it helps that it was building off of what happened in Season 4. That probably gives it a little bit of inherent advantage. But, very strong. It was very cool to see how the plot progressed. And it was always interesting. And, like, there's some betrayals you're not expecting. It's just good. It's just really good. Yeah, again, it's a culmination, you know, of the terrorism plot point that has come up to this point, but yeah, it's so good. This one's so good. So good. And the Dazai and what's-his-face, Fudo, or whatever the fuck, French man, their little duel in the underground base, in the fucking bunker of doom, was interesting. You know, those two characters are, oh, wow, I don't even know how to explain that, but yeah, good fucking shit. I really enjoyed this season of Bungo Stray Dogs. Yeah, good stuff. Really enjoyable. Really good progression, really good pacing, and the way it ends is fucking awesome. Okay, The Devil is a Part-Timer, Season 2, Part 2. I gotta tell you, I don't think we're gonna get any more Devil's a Part-Timer after this. I would be surprised if we did, at least as far as the anime goes. This wasn't bad. I was bored a lot again this season, this part of Season 2, but I appreciate what it did, especially in like the last few episodes, because this season kind of made me realize this show is a lot about like merging mundane things that we know with the crazy fantasy elements of like the devil and the angels and the hero and all that. It's about like the intentional clashing of those two things, and that's supposed to be humor in and of itself, and it is to a certain extent, but for me, you probably have to try a little harder. Because, like, you know, the scene that really made me realize that was when they drove the fucking mopeds in through the army, the holy church army or whatever. You know, like, beep beep, motherfuckers, your pizza's here. Get the fuck out of my way or die trying. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of it's just that kind of wackiness that I think they are going for, and I appreciate that about it. But again, sort of boring for the most part. There's a lot of really slow moments, and I do like. There was a lot of cathartic moments too, though, like Emmy sort of accepting her alliance with Mao, recovering Emmy's dad, what's-her-face finally learning the truth about the demons and all that shit, Susanoo and Mao's moment of understanding. Like, it does feel like a lot of stuff was resolved this go-around, which is cool, so I appreciate that about it. But, yeah, again, it felt slow. Didn't feel like there was too much growth here, and I'm glad Gabriel? Whatever the fucking Angels guy's fucking name is. I'm glad he's gone. Like, thank fucking God that man is gone. He was annoying. And, like, honestly, the most development... Like, I guess Emmy's probably is the most, but, like, the most development was the McDonald's getting a fucking cafe. Getting the McDonald's adding the McCafe. Like, the McDonald's got the most development out of anyone this season. On God. But, yeah, like, it is goofy, and, like, if you're into this sort of slower-paced stuff, then you'll probably like it. But... Again, it's hard to build off from Season 1 since Season 1 was so, like, different at the time, and, like, it was just unique and, like, surprising. It subverted your expectations a lot, and Season 2, both Part 1 and Part 2, don't really subvert expectations at all, because now that you know what you're going to get, it's sort of, like, null and void, the whole subverting expectations, because I think Season 1 relied a lot on that. And that just isn't really here this season. So, it's not really its fault, because I think it does sort of feel like that the natural progression for the story of the Devil's Part-Timer. But, it's just boring compared to Season 1. So, yeah, not really its fault. But, again, the characters are fun to watch, and the dialogue's good, and the plot progression is alright. So, I won't complain too much. It's just, it's not going to be everyone's thing, you know? Which is a bit of a shame, but, yeah. Overall, not bad at all, and I like Emmy's growth throughout, and, again, a lot of catharsis this season, so, alright. But it's mostly towards the end of this season, of this part of the season, so. Anyway, that's all for this roundup. Next season is gonna be interesting. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, and I'm gonna go lick every single Pringle in a single can and then put them back. Like thoroughly, like take one for every single one. And someone else is gonna eat them. What a prank.